first episode of We Need to Talk. My name is Simone and I'm a counselling psychologist. I'm the founder of Phoenix Counselling Services. And this podcast is simply about having real conversations about mental health topics. I've navigated some complex topics with various people, and I found that one thing stands out. It's the importance to talk and to have a safe space to talk. So that's what this podcast is, a safe space to have real conversations about mental health. And each week I will either come by myself and share on a topic where I'll share a story. I might define some terms. I might expand more on the topic itself. Or I might have a special guest come in and share their story and their insight on different mental health topics. So we could be talking about family, work, imposter syndrome, relationship issues, so many topics, but we plan to cover them all. There are a lot of topics that we could cover and a lot of topic area that we can cover on each topic. So sometimes the topic may come up again based on whether a guest wants to talk about it again, or if I feel like if there's new information that I want to share on said topic. Before we get started on today's topic, I just want to say thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope this podcast becomes a safe space where people can be seen, heard, and understood. Today, I will be kicking us off with life transitions, because next week we have a special guest who will share about life transitions, marriage, and new job, etc. So stay tuned for that. But today we're going to share a curated story about life transitions so that we can just explore more about what life transitions are and relate it to ourselves just a little bit more before we start to hear about it from other people. So life transitions can basically be job, becoming a parent, or for me personally, I think about schooling, and whether that is starting in preschool or prep school or reception and getting into school for the first time. You go to nursery school and you're leaving your parents and you're getting into that new habit of going to a place that's different because you were with your mom and dad for so long, and then getting into that transition and potentially going through primary school or whatever your country or place may call the first level of school, and then transitioning into secondary school or high school. So for the Caribbean, you go from doing 11 plus and being the oldest in your class and transitioning into secondary school where you're the youngest people in the school, and you're now getting accustomed to sports and the new uniforms and new attitudes, new personalities, having different teachers for each topic, because in my primary school, only one teacher taught all the topics, or basically taught most of the topics, and we didn't really have to walk around and go to different classrooms except for, I think, my art class. But that could be completely different now because I haven't been in primary school for a minute. But then you transition into secondary school and you're walking around the school and you're buying your own lunch. It's not school meals anymore. And you're doing after school activities, you're going to lessons more. You may have encountered lessons in primary school, but there's so many different things that happen. You go through physical transitions like puberty, then you transition into tertiary education or the workforce if you decide to go that route. And it's each stage, there's just new things that happen, new challenges that are faced, new questions, new experiences that are had or to be had, and sometimes it can be really confusing, sometimes it can be isolating, sometimes it can be great and positive, but there's also transitioning from the workforce into retirement and sometimes that can be really scary, and you don't know what to do next. You might have grandkids, or you might not have any grandkids. You may not have had any children, and therefore it's like, okay, what do I do next with my life? I've hit the retirement age and I felt pushed out from my company, etc. Some people travel, some people don't want to travel, or are too scared to travel, or don't have the money to travel. So there's so many different life transitions that happen, and it's such a huge topic, and there's so many things that you can encounter in this topic. But today I'll start by sharing a story about Daniel. Daniel was in his early 30s. He had it all: a successful career, a loving partner, and everything seemed to be going well. But then life started to change. He got married, he had his wife, and had their first child at the same time. His parents' health started to decline as well. Suddenly, Daniel was juggling the roles of a husband, father, and caregiver, all while trying to maintain his demanding job. At first, Daniel thought he could handle it all. After all, these were good things, right? But as the responsibilities piled up, so did his stress. He started feeling anxious, having trouble sleeping, and questioning whether he was doing enough. He felt trapped, like no matter how hard he worked, he was failing in every area of his life. It wasn't until Daniel sought professional help that he realized that he was dealing with an adjustment disorder. The transitions he was going through, while normal, had overwhelmed his mental health. So, that story of Daniel, this story is completely fictional. However, if you do actually want to share your story and it would be kept completely anonymous, you can send us an email at Phoenix Counselling Services bds@gmail.com and just share your story or a topic that you may want to talk about, and your story could be featured in one of the episodes. So that story about Daniel, let's go through it again. He had the life transition of becoming a husband, becoming a parent, and going from single life into married life already. It's completely different. Like, yes, there's a transition into like a relationship, but sometimes we have different expectations that we've grown up thinking, okay, marriage is this commitment, and therefore everything changes. Some people are like, okay, I have no choice but to stick this out and to do X, Y, and Z, and you have certain expectations of what your wife should do or what your husband should do, and life changes for you. Your outlook on life changes a bit, and that's just a natural life transition. Our parents aging is also another life transition, and then us bringing children into the world, we kind of start to get the viewpoint that our parents had when they would tell us certain things and how they would encounter certain things and had to deal with them. And we now start to see it from that perspective, because we now have to bring these children up and raise them, especially in the world that's just really scary right now, where there's so many diseases and there's pandemic after pandemic, and there's different changes in the economy, in people who are ruling the economies, and just experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of financial stress, a lot of emotional stress, a lot of physical stress, because it's hard to take care of ourselves. And then when you have another person or a lot more people that are dependent on you, there's the stress of feeling like you can't let them down. And as the story said, even though these are good things, these responsibilities can feel like if they just pile up and pile up and pile up, and sometimes it doesn't feel as happy as it should feel, because we feel like I don't know how to handle all of it. I don't know how to balance all of it. I don't know what to do to deal with it in order to find the joy, find the happiness in it. So let's start by defining transitions. So I would have talked about school transitions, puberty transitions, but transitions are basically just moments in life that push us out of our comfort zone and into new rules. They can be exciting, but they can also be incredibly challenging, and that's okay. Just because a transition is expected, like getting married or having a baby, it doesn't mean it won't take a toll on your mental health. So, as I was saying, sometimes we're told, okay, you should be happy because this is happening to you or that is happening to you. So you got a new job and you should be happy and you should just be grateful. And if you feel like if you were going to complain or share the stresses or anxiety about the new job, then you're ungrateful, or sometimes you just feel like there's another shoe waiting to drop. So often we can experience these life transitions and have the should feeling of I should be feeling like this or I should be feeling like that, and have these expectations on ourselves, which can just build up and build up and pile up, and then we're not feeling that, we're kind of faking it. So going through new jobs and new experiences like marriage and having a child, it can be very difficult because you're not going day by day and just experiencing what is happening in front of you. It's more of futuristic thoughts, and I need to do so much in order to make sure that my child's life is great, or make sure that I can meet my wife's expectations instead of sitting down and enjoying a movie. Sometimes it feels like if those things are so trivial and small, but those are some of the happy things, and it can also be really anxiety inducing to hear, okay, well, just forget about the big things and just do something small and be happy and only focus on the little things. But there's balance in life, and we want to be able to balance the happy and the stressful, and remember that it's not all about the responsibility, but enjoying what you have in front of you, because sometimes we won't have it forever, and not sometimes, we won't have it forever, and things change very quickly. For example, the pandemic, and sometimes in hurricanes, where we think, okay, one day we're going to wake up and we're going to be great and do everything, and then life just changes. Life is completely different, and we don't know what to do with ourselves because we've taken so much for granted. And that's because we were too busy worrying about making everything perfect or fitting into a certain standard or expectation. And sometimes these expectations come from parents or guardians that we've had throughout our lives, and just sometimes we create expectations for ourselves, and we find that we're putting so much pressure on ourselves to be perfect that we don't stop to look at the grass or look at the sky, or just take a deep breath and just be. Transitions can be stressful because, as I've said, it's a major change. There are a lot of people who struggle with change, and I'm one of those people. I don't like when things are different. But different doesn't always mean bad. Different can be good. Like getting married and having a baby, you now have someone to share your life with. You now have someone to share those experiences with, the negative, the hard, the stressful. You have someone to come home to and someone to rely on. With a new baby, you get to watch them grow and laugh and say their first word, take their first steps. Just watch in awe of something that you've created, something that you're now a part of shaping and molding. And although that can be really anxiety inducing, it can also be really magical to watch. So transitions can be stressful, but if we allow ourselves to just relax a bit more, whether that is going through de-stressing things like yoga or meditation or taking a walk or just exercising at the gym, listening to music, and really relaxing ourselves and putting ourselves in the present and being more mindful, then we can really respond more positively to the change and be able to focus on experiencing things in present and not just taking it for granted, and being more positive and happy. You can feel really out of control when things are changing. I know I do feel out of control, and sometimes the reaction, the natural response is to want to stay in control, but we really don't have control of pretty much anything, except for ourselves and our emotions. But we don't have any sort of control over what changes and what changes will happen. So that in and of itself can just be almost daunting, that you have to go through that and you don't know what to expect and you don't know how to handle it. And that usually comes with emotionally regulating and realizing, okay, I'm not going through this alone. Whether you have a partner or not, whether you're in touch with your family or not, you're not necessarily going through it alone. And by necessarily going through it alone, I mean other people have experienced the experiences that you're experiencing. Count how many times I said experiencing. But other people literally are having those experiences at the same time. They've already been through them. Some haven't even gone through them yet. So it's not you're the only person who's dealing with this particular thing. Even people who are going through various medical conditions, like usually there's somebody before you. There are rare cases where somebody hasn't experienced something before, but more often than not, there's studies that have happened, or there's just stories that were shared, and that's why I want to do this podcast, and I want to have people share their stories for us to realize that we're not in it alone, and these changes are scary, but other people are also experiencing these changes. And I know that right now with social media especially, where people are only showing the positive and they're not showing the changes and the life transitions and the stresses, it can feel like if we are alone and that we're going through it alone, because everybody seems to be getting by so easy and they're just having all this money, and you might be at home being like, I don't even know what I'm going to eat tomorrow. And it honestly feels like if it's suffocating you sometimes to go through these life transitions and these changes. But you're not alone, and if we would just speak up more about it, if we would just share more about it, we would have realized that we're not by ourselves in it. So we can have this pressure to keep it all together, and we really don't need to keep it all together. It's okay to cry, it's okay to be upset, it's okay to let it out, be angry sometimes, it's okay to struggle, it's okay to show that side of you. And especially for males in the society who are taught that they can't show that side of themselves, and even some females will tell you that they'll get the ick or they'll be grossed out by males if they show too much feelings, and in certain situations they don't want their husbands or their boyfriends to have like any sort of breakdown because they have to be stronger than them. And it's really unfair for a lot of people to have that pressure put on them, to be like, okay, when will they get a chance to be upset or sad or breathe, really, like to cry, to let it out. And then it comes out in violence and anger, and you just see partners abusing another partner because they didn't have outlet for their emotions for so many years, for so long, for so many different things, and it comes out in that way. And we don't often realize that these big changes can really pile up and explode in very strange ways. So then you just see people with more anxiety and more depression and experiencing headaches and fatigue and just going through life on this kind of survival mode because they're not sharing, they're feeling isolated, they're not handling the transitions well, they're not handling the experiences well, they're feeling as though they're isolated. So I think it's important to recognize that we have support and that we should support each other, because we really need each other now more than ever to really be there for one another. It's not a world where one person will survive and everybody else can just suffer, and that's just how life is. It's not. We need each other to survive. We need each other to get through it. And noticing symptoms like irritability, trouble sleeping, feelings of hopelessness, and checking in on people who you can see that their mental health is deteriorating and that they may need help from a mental health professional, or they may just need to talk to a friend, or they may need to just get outside, and recognizing that you can help someone or yourself and share your story and share about what's going on with you to connect with people. I feel like social media also has taken away our authentic sharing with each other, and we don't usually share the negatives of what we're feeling because we don't want to be seen as the depressed person or the sad person or somebody who can't handle it, somebody who's weak. But sharing about your mental health and sharing about your struggles through transitions isn't weak. It's literally a part of life, and we need each other. So some coping strategies that I have written down could be establishing a new routine to regain a sense of control. Break down the transition into manageable steps rather than trying to do it all at once. So if you're going into a new job or you're going into new schooling, time management, self-care, making sure that you're breaking down the task, even literally the task itself. So if your boss asks you to do something or your teacher asks you to do something, breaking that task down into as small pieces as you can and seeing what needs to be done, how much you can actually handle, giving yourself a time frame that you can handle it in, and spacing it out, including self-care into that so that you can replenish yourself, because you can't give from an empty cup. So it's more so of having the balance to be able to do what needs to be done and then still feeling whole, not hesitating to ask for help, whether it's from friends, family, or a therapist. Practicing self-care and mindfulness to stay grounded even when things feel chaotic. So it's okay to ask for help and being vulnerable. I think we've lost the plot when it comes to being vulnerable, because vulnerability can help reduce the stigma, help us transition through tough times. It's okay to admit that you're struggling, and we often have a pressure, as I said, to feel like if we have it all together, and that's not true. Embracing being vulnerable and transitioning allows the struggle to literally feel less. You can feel like if you're stronger than before when you have other people helping you through. When you share what you're going through, that has less power over you. When you share what you're going through, it gives you other people the chance to help you. You can have new answers and new avenues for things that you never thought were there before if you literally just give yourself a chance. If you just give other people the chance to give you information, to give you the help, to be of assistance to you, to help you get through. And if you're doing that for other people as well, the give and the take is literally getting us all up the hill together. So the power of that vulnerability really helps you to continue, to thrive, to feel less out of control, to feel less isolated, to feel happier, to feel more in balance, grounded, mindful. Life transitions are inevitable, and the way that they affect our mental health is not always obvious, because there's so many ways that life transitions can affect our mental health. And sometimes the life transitions can be joyful ones, and they affect our mental health negatively. Sometimes they can be joyful and they affect our mental health negatively. So it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this first episode. It was a bit short, but next week's episode will be a lot longer. I just wanted to start the talking. I just wanted to start the talking, open up this platform and this space for us to start talking about these topics. And I want you to tune in next week for our special guest, who will come and talk about transitions and open up that conversation a bit more. Until then, you can comment, you can share your story through email or through the comments if you choose. And I just want you to remember that there's no shame in asking for help, and we'll see you next week. Bye.